Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Too Old to Die Young, Volume 8, The Hanged Man. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. It's been a while since episode 7, due to sickness and a few other things. And what was last week? Because I was making fun, like, one of our viewers, Devious, who shows up for the live streams, is always asking about the next Too Old to Die Young. And last week, I had the distinct, amusing discussion of we were going to do it tonight. We'd watched it. I think you'd fallen asleep. I think it was just that. It was that simple. We were going to do stuff that night.
No, because I didn't fall asleep at all last week. Thank you very much. We got through because last week was Mindhunter week, and we got through every episode, and I didn't fall asleep once.
Okay.
So don't you dare pull that shit on me.
Okay, your internet cut out. I remember where it was now. Your internet cut out halfway through Mindhunter.
Of recording Mindhunter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and we were doing Till to Die Young after it, and then we couldn't do it because your internet was out. And I got to amusingly tell him that we were about to do it, and then it didn't happen because of internet issues.
No. Okay, it was an issue on my end, but I did not fall asleep.
Still on the corner side of the equation. This is still clear as day as far as I'm concerned. But we're here for Volume 8, The Hanged Man, 90-minute episode. With some surprising moments, I think. Not surprising that they happened, but surprising that they happened in episode 8.
Exactly, yeah.
Which makes me very curious as to what the final 2 episodes are going to be in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because we've been saying the whole time, 10's going to be an epilogue. It's only half an hour. And I stand by that. It's 9 that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 10's still interesting because I have no idea what 9's going to do. 10 could be anything because 9, I don't know what it is. So, I feel like Yuritsa is maybe the key to all this, that her conclusion is going to be the real end of the story, but at this point, I don't know. Because Mara's dead. Mara's completely dead. And technically...
And Janie too.
Janie too, yeah. Technically, it's off camera, but I mean, it's pretty conclusive. I mean, the sound effects and the...
Yeah, no, I want to say, we didn't see a body, but no, he's dead.
He was hacking at that severed head for several minutes at the end, with just blood splattering everywhere. I'm fairly confident that the dude's dead.
Yeah, I agree.
With creepy imagery that was spliced in, which was interesting. These little girl faces with the masks. Seemingly from Yuritsa's POV, because Yuritsa's watching all this. It was a very curious ending to the episode. But let's go back. Let's go back to the start. It starts with Martin handing in his badge and gun. He's given up his job at the LAPD, and we get this overly dramatic presentation from his boss, pretending to be Jesus with a broomstick.
It's glorious.
Particularly the part where the dude in the helmet runs in, one of the other cops, and says, democracy's our bitch, and then says, and this is the NRA, and like prods him with whatever he's holding, whatever sharp stick he's holding. And Martin, as per usual, sitting there very quietly and just apologizes that he's letting them down in a very kind of nonchalant way. And the scene ends with the boss feeding them the what do we call it?
Yeah.
What do you call it? The Catholic thing.
The bread?
Yeah, the little circle of bread. You grew up in a Catholic.
It does. Hang on, it's got an actual name because it is just it's bread, but it has an actual name. I want to say Eucharist, but I'm not sure. I'm not confident on that.
Right, it feeds him it. It feeds him the bread. It's the whole thing. It's overly dramatic. It's exactly the sort of thing we expect from these characters. Probably the last time we're going to see this batch of characters, actually. Although what I was really noticing is just, if you look at the whiteboard at the side, there's like weird things on it. It's the word fascism was there a couple of times, and there was just
democracy's our bitch is on there.
Yeah, there was a couple of things like that on there, but ultimately this leads us. There is one scene with Jesus and the others where they're prepping this farmhouse, presumably for something violent, because they're talking about a barbecue and everything else. Willem Dafoe. Or not Willem Dafoe's there, setting this all up for them. And I know his name's Alfonso, but he's William Dafoe to me now. He's actually
You're a terrible person.
Latino Dafoe. That's what I'm going to call him. Latino Dafoe.
I'll take it.
So, but we come to Martin, who's with Diana, And it's very reminiscent of the shot from like episode 2 or 3. Must have been 3 because 2 was the all Mexico episode.
Yeah.
Where she's walking up and down the pool. It's just this tracking shot from side to side. But instead of Vigo there, it's Martin now, who is now free from his obligations and has got time to do the job full time now. What was interesting though, just I'd have to go back and look at the scene from episode 2 to really compare them side by side. But I think there's probably some stuff to read into here about how exactly he follows or compared to the way Vigo did, because it felt like a lot more like he was being left behind and had to catch up in this scene to me. Whereas with Vigo, it felt like we switched between them a bit more evenly.
Yeah. I definitely remember Vigo falling behind at one point.
It did happen.
He just showed up at the end.
But it felt different because he came in from a different side, I remember, Vigo, whereas Martin's always feels like he's sort of coming up from behind her.
Yeah.
And another detail I noticed, because I remember very vividly talking about that scene back in like episode 3, where I talked about how the pool was very reflective and it felt like this kind of mirror image of the city. It was this very tranquil shot. Very different here, where it's a bit more overcast and the pool's not reflective at all. It just looks, it's the water, just blue. But it's a very different mood to that previous version of this scene, where while like there's a hope here that he's going to replace Vigo, there's kind of a murkiness to it where, I don't know, it's not feeling quite right.
Yeah, and I think as well, you talk about how he's always dragging behind, he's not catching up and cutting her off ahead like the way Vigo did. Where that was how it felt when he came in from the other side. It's no, he's still new at this, and he doesn't have the experience to keep up yet.
See, I'm going to go with the murkiness and that he's not quite right for it, based on where this episode goes, and based on this idea that he ultimately is going to meet an untimely end because of the sins that he's already committed. That ultimately he was never a clean slate. Not that anyone who gets into this is a clean slate necessarily. It's not like, you don't just get into the killing of bad people business because you're a normal person who's never done anything sketchy. But the feeling that his end is kind of inevitable by the end of this episode.
Sure.
Yeah, it makes me feel like, no, this was doomed from the start. He was never really going to, he wanted to be better. He was always going to try to be better, but he'd already committed too many bad things. Which is almost where I think the title kind of comes from. It's not that he's literally too, because he's like 30. He's not that old, but it's that what he's done makes him older. It's what he's done.
Sure.
It's more of a metaphorical age thing as opposed to a literal age thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's given this mission, and Vigo takes him there, and it's this like abandoned mall, which I swear I've seen before. I'm convinced that this was the same location that a big scene from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. took place in season 3, back when the Lash stuff was happening. There was this, the escalators that in the general location just feels so similar. If it isn't the same place, it feels...
It's not impossible that it is the same place.
Well, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. shoots in LA, which this clearly also did.
Yeah.
So I think it might be, because it feels like, you've got this abandoned shopping mall. It makes sense that a bunch of different movies and TV shows over the years have probably used it for different things because it's just there to be used.
Yeah, definitely.
But Vigo gets too sick. He's coughing. He can't walk. He has to sit down, and Martin has to go on without him. And this feels like a very spiritual passing of the torch. As it
is. It's like no. It's your turn now.
Yeah. And he goes and he finds this guy who, we don't really hear a lot about his crimes. We know that whoever his victim is 6. We hear that one detail, but ultimately it's just he did something bad. And Martin comes down, and the guy comes out with a shotgun. He's in hiding. He's very, very twitchy. And Martin just kind of plays it off like he's just there by happenstance. But then he kind of makes him lower his guard for just a second by saying, "Your mother sent me." He says his name. You're Redford, I think his name was.
Sure.
And he's like, "Hey, your mother sent me." And he just lowers the shotgun for a second, and Martin just shoots him. Like in the snap of a second, just pulls out his gun and shoots him.
And no hesitation.
Of course, honestly, probably the loudest spit in the entire show was in this scene. There's a spit halfway through the scene, and it felt like they really amped up the sound, the Foley on this.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So, that was the whole thing. But yeah, so he goes back to Vigo, and he's like, "Is the job done?" He's like, "Yeah." And he takes Vigo home, and Vigo can barely walk. He's helping him get into his room, into his bed, and Vigo just says, "Can you hold me for a minute?" And he does. Martin sits down next to him and puts his arm around him, and then
Yeah.
eventually it lays him down and puts a blanket over him, and it's this whole very somber, bittersweet kind of ending. And the end of the scene is Martin leaving the room, Vigo's mother being there, who we also know is sick, and saying, "Can I speak to you for a moment?" And he says yes. And again, all this very quiet, very methodically paced. And he sits down, and she says, "Would you like to know how he died?" And he says yes. And the scene fades to black. It doesn't cut, it fades to black. Who do you think she's talking about?
It's a good question.
Because my instinct is actually somehow Vigo, even though technically he's not dead yet. It feels like more of a, like...
No, I agree, because that's my first thought, but I don't know if it tracks.
Like, I wonder if she's talking about when he became what he is now, like the idea that that's when she considers when he died.
Could be. Because I was thinking, maybe the first person he killed that got in, that got this started.
Maybe. Because I was kind of reading it as like she's kind of delirious and senile, and she's kind of like thinking about things in a different way, but it also is relevant to just his character and the idea that he really died when he started becoming this person. When he became what he is now, and this ending is just the end of this part of him. It's not necessarily thingy.
Sure.
What Windows has changed its update thing, because I just got a box popping up saying restart and update and stay in support.
You're like, go away! Don't you dare restart.
I don't know why I pick a time. Just go away, you prick. I don't know, because I'll restart later. It wasn't an option. It was like restart tonight. I don't want to click that. I don't want to restart sometime tonight that I'm not prepared for.
Well, I mean, it's better than it restarting right now.
True, but I'll forget though, and it'll catch me off guard. But it's like,
what else going on?
Support's ending for this version of Windows in like a month. I'm like, I don't go away.
How long has it been since you updated?
It all updates all the time. I don't know.
How's support ending already?
I don't know. It says it's the April version that I've got, but it's updated since then. But clearly, it's not the
Not done a full update.
Yeah, I think the last time it tried to full update, it failed. So I just kind of.
Well, that's a good sign.
I know, it's done it before. So anyway,
Well.
Yeah. So they did that scene. But during this, I don't know when this scene took place exactly, but there was a scene with Janie being interviewed because her dad's missing, naturally from before, and this female police officer is asking her questions about last time she's seen him, and it comes up that he's ran away before for with a girlfriend, but he's always kind of kept in touch, and that Martin might have seen him last. That the boyfriend might have seen him last. And she's like, okay, so Martin was leaving for work. Oh, what does your boyfriend do? And she's like, oh, he's a cop. Like, didn't you just say you just turned 18? Because she mentioned her birthday party. That was the last time she really spoke to him.
Yeah. And
she's like, yeah, and she's like, well, and she starts asking all these questions about Martin, and she's like, why are you so interested in my sex life?
So how long have you been going out with him? And she mentions however long it was.
Yeah, she mentions when they met and blah blah blah. But no, she's like, why are you so interested in my sex life? And she's like, I think you know why. And ultimately, when she finally admits, like, oh, you started dating this guy when you were 16, when you were a minor, she's like, that's a very serious crime, statutory rape. And she's like, well, it's not like I'm going to press charges. And she's like, that may not be up to you. And again, this was kind of like this idea that I was getting to, where like Martin's kind of doomed no matter what. Like all the choices he's made before he started to become this have already doomed him, because it's not up to him to just wipe it under the rug.
Definitely, and that's been a sense throughout most of the show. Still didn't expect it to end in this episode in the way that it did.
Oh no, again, I wasn't expecting this episode, but looking back now, so much of the stuff in this episode is about building.
It is preparing to
this.
That, yeah.
So it ends in this really kind of somber moment with that. But what's interesting is, when Martin comes back and he's sitting there when Janie wakes up the next day, and Janie sort of wakes up and he's there and he's like, oh, let's go, go do something. They end up going to the beach. And I think what's interesting, the really sad part of this story here, is that this is the first time in the entire show where Martin seems to take an interest in what Janie's like thinking about, and asks her to talk about what she's thinking, and she's talking about how she wants to live if she was picking anywhere to live, she'd pick Montana, and she tells a story about how she went there with her mom, and it's this really happy childhood memory. And he listens to her, and it feels like the first legitimately kind of sweet moment that.
Yeah, and it's not like he's ever treated her badly, to be fair.
No, he's just been very disinterested.
Yeah, he's been very distracted, focused on his work. It's as if when he retired from his job, quit. It's like, it wasn't just the killing that he had more time for. He wasn't distracted anymore.
I don't think it's so much that he's not distracted. I think that's almost simplified to it. I think it's more that he's finally being who he's really supposed to be. So he's actually at a place where he is actually engaging with feelings better. He is like actually starting to pay attention to who's around him and what's around him, because he's not like, because before he was in this cocoon, because he was in this like society structure that he didn't quite understand. He didn't feel like he belonged in, and I think coming out of that, he feels free, and it's like. He feels free from leaving his job. He's starting to be in a better place with Janie. He's starting to feel like he's doing proper work for Diana. So all these things all building up all feel like it's like, oh no, he's actually getting to a better place. Like he's finally finding happiness in his own weird, unique way.
Yeah, I was going back into how he actually sat there and hugged Vigo. Which I doubt he would have done at the start of the season.
Sure, yeah. Still not the most chatty, touchy-feely person in the world, but he's definitely improved since the start of the show. He's definitely getting somewhere.
Definitely.
So, of course, during this scene, though, we cut to Latino Defoe and one of the other henchmen who are watching them at the beach, and because we know they're coming, because we know they got Martin's name at the end of the last episode, so we know that we're building up to something here, and. Part of me genuinely thinks, they're going to try, because I honestly thought they're going to try and like nab him here, and he was going to like fight back, and like this was going to be Latino Defoe's end. Like he was going to go out in a really dumb way because he's too incompetent to actually take Martin.
I can see that. I could have also seen him succeeding in taking Martin, but then we've got Martin versus Jesus as episode 9 essentially.
Sure, but this is like halfway through this episode, so
it was, yeah.
But sure enough, we just like Janie and Martin are walking together, holding hands, and they look happy. Even Martin's kind of smiling a little bit. Janie's smiling, like
as much as Miles Teller can smile.
You almost feel like this is the first. She feels better about him in the way he's acting than she has in a long time. She feels like, and again, going back to that scene where she's been interviewed by the cop, she's worried that she's got him into trouble, and she sort of reiterates, "You've done nothing wrong. This is him." She makes it very clear that he's the one at fault here. And I think the sad part of the story. In terms of the tragedy, is that Martin gets her killed. Martin being in her life has ruined her life. It's ended up with her father being killed, and sure, there's maybe hints that it's debatable that maybe he was maybe not healthy for her anyway. Was her dad, but he's gotten her killed now as well. Like he's kind of ruined the lives of everyone that he's gotten involved in.
It has, and which means very indirectly. This was not his fault directly.
Well, it doesn't matter though. That's kind of the point. Is that it's not directly. It's that just being there, the world that he's a part of, has gotten her killed.
No. But I wanted to make a clear distinction between what happened with her father and then this. It's very much a direct cause and then an indirect cause.
Yeah, but I don't think it matters though, because it's just been part of his life. It's in fact, it's very similar to Drive. Is actually, when I think about it, like Drive, the whole story of that movie is that him being who he is, he realizes that he's going to affect people around him negatively, so he makes the choice to leave. He makes the right choice. He actually he realizes that he has to separate himself from the people he cares about. Whereas in this show, Martin never does that, and it gets them all killed. He
never gets the chance to get that far. Yeah,
he gets them all killed. But it's a really well shot scene because they run up behind him, and he realizes something's up. He's going for his gun, but he gets hit in the face with like a tire iron like immediately, and we have this extended little bit here where Janie's just in shock and staring at Latino Defoe and just sort of not quite begging, but just kind of asks like one time like to not, and he just sort of says no and shoots her in the face, and it's very violent, it's very brutal, very visceral. Very shocking ending, and you're like, shit. Like this episode, like I say, these two previous scenes kind of made it feel like, they're finally getting somewhere where they're happier, and that she feels more understood and listened to by Martin, and then it's just like that, boom, she's gone. And the entire thing feels like we've been building up so that it's going to hurt when Janie's life is ended because of what Martin's into. So yeah, they take him to the farmhouse that they've been preparing for this, and he's just being whipped. But then he's just like, no, it's my turn. Everyone else get out. This is a personal thing for me. And Martin's stuff for the rest of this episode is just to sit there and be whipped. Like that is it. He doesn't have another line of dialogue.
He does nothing. He's chained up and gets whipped. That is it.
Brutally over and over again over multiple days. We see his back just deteriorate. The first time we see it after a few whippings, it's like okay, it's a couple of lines with blood. But by the time we see his back at the end of the episode, it's just like it's a mess.
It's shredded. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a mesh of flesh and blood and lines everywhere. It looks like someone just scribbled on a bit of paper, with no rhyme or reason. That's what it looks like. But of course, during this, there's other things that happen. There's a really great shot actually. There's a tracking shot going from Latino Defoe, who's dancing, past some henchmen who are just sitting there, to Jesus, who comes down and sits down at a bench, and then in walks Yuritsa and sits down across the table from him. But there's a lot of weird things throughout the course of this 3-day period where he's torturing them. Where we've seen the weird sexual relationship between Jesus and Yuritsa, but we see a couple of more examples of it here. The first time is when he comes back into, or she comes in and sort of yells at one of the henchmen for being there, that he shouldn't be there, and sort of shows her dominance. But then goes into the room, and Jesus is very much out of it, and she jacks him off, and she does this. It's very kind of
casual
and impersonal. She just kind of stands there and does it. And then, of course, when she's done, though, she shoves her whole hand in his mouth, presumably with some of his finishings on there.
Probably.
It's a very domineering kind of scene, and it plays similar to what we've seen with them before, although oddly not as dominating as the next one's going to be.
No.
Although interestingly, I think the next one takes place after she's also had her own.
I think so, yeah. Which is an interesting side. What feels like a side detour at first, but now is probably going to be the main focus of the next episode.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Like, she feels like the one really in power with Jesus, and this American branch of this gang. But the thing is that we see her in the episode because they've got some prostitutes, because obviously they're sex trafficking as we've seen before. They've got some prostitutes locked up in the stables, and it's really inhumane. And she brings a mortar at one point, but then she sees some of the henchmen taking two of the girls away in a car. And they're they've got sacks over their heads, and they're kind of screaming for help. And Yuritsa, we can see he's obviously not too pleased about this. And Yuritsa follows them and goes to this motel where they've clearly got some local buyers for the girls, and they've got them in the motel rooms. And Yuritsa, it gets very violent here, but it's unlike the other violence in this episode, which is very uncomfortable because it's hurting characters that are undeserving. I mean, Martin's kind of debatable, but certainly Janie, you feel uncomfortable with
definitely.
With the violence. This is far more.
Even with Martin, it goes so far that you get uncomfortable.
Yeah. Whereas this is far more rooting for her is maybe a little bit in the just the sort of nonchalant side, because it is very extreme. But at the same time, she's taking out sex traffickers. It's kind of you know what, go for it. I mean, hell, she even kills a Nazi in this scene. That's the extent we go to. She first violently stabs the guy in the phone booth. She walks up to the guys outside the room. Intentionally kind of, playing up her sexiness a little bit to sort of lower their guard, and then violently stabs and shoots them. And the music's great during this whole bit.
Her so good. Her theme is possibly my favorite piece of music.
Yeah, her theme is very notable because it's a very kind of melodic theme compared to a lot of the other ones, which are just kind of That's my impression of some of the score.
That sums it up nicely.
Yeah, and then the last guy she kills is there's a swastika in the back, and he's actually dressed that way, and she kills him. And she says hey, tell when people ask you, tell them that the high priestess of death saved you. And and again at the end of the scene, she puts on her sunglasses and stands there just all cool. Yuritsa a lot of the time just stands there looking cool. She's very good at this.
She's very good at it, isn't she?
Yeah. But she's pulled off her little thing, and the weird thing is that she's kind of like Martin on this side of the fence in a weird way. She's kind of the Martin. She's taken out the perpetrators of the sexual violence,
but she's also very much involved on an intimate level as well. In that she's there and overseeing everything in the farmhouse, and is the one in power. And it's to a more extent where it's kind of like Martin was okay, yeah, he was doing stuff for Damien, right, and he was involved in the
Yeah,
gangs,
but the
but
question
he
I
had
have to
his thing
ask
on the
is,
side.
I have to ask though, is this just a means to an end? Like ultimately, is she going to bring this whole thing down?
Well, possibly, yeah.
One step at a time. She can't necessarily take on everyone in one go, but is she kind of thinning them out and ultimately going to like take them down? And where's Jesus going to stand on this? Assuming he doesn't know already, like when he does find out she's doing this, like if he does he go along with it? Is he on her side? Is he, you know, part of me thinks he might
he'll
be.
do whatever she says.
Yeah, part of me feels like he likes her being in charge, and this is where we're getting to the little weird sex scene. Is she comes back and with the very whip that he was using for Martin, sodomizes him with it.
Yeah.
And I mean he's willing, but
he's quite happy about this.
Yeah. I mean, as happy as one can look when having
a
whip handle shoved up one's rear end. But again, it's very dominating, very domineering, and she's the one kind of on top, in charge. Is very much what this says, and I mean, I almost wonder, like, you could almost say she's also the Diana as well. She's like Diana and Martin mixed almost on this side in a weird way. It's almost like if she was given Jesus the orders to go and like kill bad people, which she might end up doing, honestly. Yeah. She'd feel almost like the Diana as well. So it's a very interesting dynamic in this sense. And like I say, I think the weird visual like spliced in images of the girls in the mass at the end, and because it ends in a shot of Yuritsa, which I think is very interesting, that it ends on like a very quick cut of her, and it's because the music that plays when Jesus goes to kill Martin and he's in his underwear and he eventually chops off his head and starts whacking at it. The music is very horror movie, is very like uncomfortable and abrasive, and it cuts to these like weird images of these girls in mass, and then Yuritsa is the one staring, and it just you get the one last note of the sort of music, and it just cuts on her face, and it makes me feel like she almost has made Jesus this like aggressive, like she's amped him up, and it feels like she's in a lot of ways is watching her handiwork play out as he like just brutally murders him. So
yeah, it's pretty intense, this scene.
Yeah. So I mean, if I was to make a guess, like she's going to kind of groom him to kind of like help with her mission, but it's a guess at this point. I don't know.
Either that, or she just has to get him out of the way and do her own thing entirely.
Yeah, because the funny thing is that Yuritsa is actually very sympathetic, because the hints of her past of being a prostitute herself, and then like everything she's done when she's had a chance to help people makes her very likable, even though she's obviously working with Jesus, which has gotten Janie and other people killed, and everything else. Like, but let's be honest, there's not a lot of like sympathetic characters in this show. They're kind of few and far between.
You had Janie.
Yeah, Janie. Diana and Vigo are fairly sympathetic.
Fairly, but again, not completely clean.
Yeah.
Vigo more than Diana, I suppose, in that sense.
Yeah. So no. Yeah,
that's about it though for sympathy.
I'm excited to see how the story ends and just how it's kind of shifted focus. Because I feel like you went into this thinking Miles Teller's the main character, right? Like
he definitely, the first episode definitely presented as that, and then the second one subverted with Jesus, right? It's like, okay, maybe they're equal leads, but we get why you bill Miles Teller. And then the show has pretty much kind of stuck with that up until this point. I'd say, maybe not 50-50, but I'd say they're roughly even.
I'm starting to think Yuritsa is the most important character. I really think.
Yeah, definitely.
That's where it's going towards the end here.
I think episode 9 is it's called The Empress, and it's hard not to see how that might be Yuritsa, the real power in this cartel empire, as it might be.
No, I can totally see that. So no, and it's funny because all episodes, like I say, I was expecting Martin to somehow like avoid being taken, on the scene on the beach, and then I was expecting at some point somehow for him to be let out of being held captive.
Yeah, or Vigo to show up or something.
Yeah, the backup might show up if they become aware of it, and no, he's killed, he's dead, like, and that's it. I was like, oh, okay. I like genuinely like I'm surprised. Like at the end of episode 9, sure, I could have maybe expected it. especially since the last
Yeah,
episode's a shorter episode. But I was
eight's
not.
the first that.
Yeah, I was not expected at the end of episode 8, so I'm genuinely quite shocked that they killed off Martin at this point in the show. So I'm very intrigued. I'm intrigued if we even see Vigo again.
Yeah, we might not see them again. But I think what surprised me this episode, even towards the end, in thinking that Martin would still get out of it, is it was only halfway through this episode that we lost Janie. We never get to see him react to that. There's no follow up to that. So all episode I'm thinking, okay, he's getting out of this somehow, just so that we can have some beat play off of that. And there's just nothing, which is kind of surprising.
He does ask what happened to her because he didn't get to see it.
Yeah. But what I mean is, actually follow up on it and have something to do with it, rather than just, oh, okay, he's dead as well now. Never mind.
I mean, I think the whole idea is that during the 3 days of being whipped, he's, that's his time to think about all this shit. That's his time to stew in it. But we interestingly don't really focus on or dwell on him too much at that point. We've shifted completely to Jesus and Yuritsa and their plot and their side of it. So, very intrigued to see how we wrap this up. I am surprised the foe was still kicking. I really thought that if not dying in stupidity, I thought Jesus would just kill him at some point.
It's actually Yuritsa's job.
Yeah. So,
probably with the gun that he gave her.
Very possibly, yeah. And probably in a silly erotic way that one can't see coming.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah. But that was episode 8. It's culminating a lot of things right now, and I'm genuinely quite fascinated by what's going to happen now in the final 2 episodes. So hopefully we won't take too long to get to the next one. The 10th one shouldn't take a while once we've done 9 because it's only half an hour. That'll be easy to squeeze in somewhere. But we'll hopefully be to episode 9 soon. But that has been episode 8 of Too Old to Die Young. So by all means, let us know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and the channel and everything we do here, you can head over to patreon.com/mailedfuzztv, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month, and you get bonus episodes of some stuff, you get some early stuff and other things. So go and have a look-see. You can also rate the audio version of the podcast on your podcast app. So if you're on Apple Podcasts or whatever, give us 5 stars. It helps more people find us, that kind of thing. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?